My mother is a very Christian woman. So that is explaining why she kicked me out of the house when I turned 17 because I fell pregnant with the love of my life. Well, you know what? It's the same mom that now wants to be a part of my family. All these years later, and you won't believe the reason she's coming back to try to reunite with me. The same woman who saw me on the streets, not even affording enough formula for my baby, and she turned her chin up at me and did not help me at all. Well, you know what I decided to tell her after all these years when she showed her face to me? When people say that religion is what makes humans kind, I can't help but laugh. Because if this was the case, then I would not have gone through the struggles that I obviously had to face. My adopted mother. She was a deeply rooted Christian woman, yet she was the cruelest person I knew. She went to church every Sunday, never missed a Bible study. But when it was time to show kindness, all I could see was wicked. If anyone had told me that a time would come in my life when I would think that my family would try to reach out to me after all the hell I passed through in their hands, I would never have believed it. For you to all understand me better, I'll take you to the backstory, right? When I was only a year old, my adoptive parents adopted me and raised me. I think I was 7 years old when I found out that they weren't my real parents. According to my mom, she and my dad had adopted me after she found out that she could not conceive again. And since she had always wanted a daughter, they adopted me at first sight. I won't say my parents did not do a good job in raising me. It would be selfish and ungrateful for me to say so. But sometimes I wish they did not adopt me at all. You know, the reason that I say so is because I went through hell living with them, especially because they were religious fanatics. My mom was the kind of person who never ceased to tell me how I would burn to ashes in hell if I didn't do what she said or told me to do. See, at a very young age, I had rules in the house. I could not eat extra food if Mom did not give it to me herself. I wasn't allowed to play outside or even hang out with friends like other children my age did. I wasn't allowed to lie, not even necessary. I wasn't allowed to complain, even if they were breaking my back with chores. Trust me, I did a lot of chores as a kid. While my brother, on the other hand, my parents' biological kid, had always wanted to do what he wanted to do and he got away with it. He would steal stuff, eat as much as he wanted, and nobody would even yell at him or punish him for drinking extra glasses of juice. The truth is, even without finding out that I was adoptive, my mother made it very obvious from the way that she treated me and talked to me. At the slightest provocation, she would remind me that there were millions of children out there who did not have homes and parents. This was always her indirectly telling me to be thankful that she adopted me and gave me a roof over my head. The only time I felt like I was being watched or controlled was whenever I was in school. That was the only moment I could be myself without being yelled at or even scolded for acting like a sinner. Most times, when I reflected on the physical torture and mental abuse I passed through, I would cry bitterly because I wished that I knew I could get help. Even at the church I was forced to attend every Sunday, there was no one that I could talk to because everyone believed my mom was a saint. And nobody would have believed me if I told them that I was physically and verbally abused every single day. On the days that I wasn't, I would be reminded how I was such a terrible sinner and how there was a special place in hell for me if I did not make my ways right before God. I was so naive. I remember one time when my mom saw me walking back home with a boy from my class. Well, guess what, guys? I was grounded for a whole month. I don't even want to remember the emotional torture I went through in that 1 month. My mom, my dad, and my brother all ganged up against me and made my life miserable. They even accused me of being a call girl. Yeah, at 15, just because I was holding hands with a boy. As if that was not enough, my mom banned all my friends from visiting. She literally told one of my friends to never show up on her property again or she's calling the cops. You can imagine how heartbreaking that was. She also got to decide the days that I would go to school and the days I wouldn't. I remember one evening after waking up at 5 a.m. to make breakfast for everyone, clean the house and do all my chores, she tells me that I could not go to school that day. When I asked her why, her only response was because I said so. You know, the last straw that broke that camel's back was when she would starve me, in the guise of fasting. I even lost count on the days I literally starved, while my mother and her family would eat whatever they wanted and still have, me cook for them and do the dishes. It really breaks my heart to say that I never experienced true love from any of them. Not even my father, who was a preacher in our church. It was my desire to experience genuine love that pushed me to the arms of my first boyfriend, whom I accidentally got pregnant for at age 16. Honestly, like every other naive teenager, I believed that my then boyfriend and I would get married. I told him everything I was passing through in my parents' house, and we even devised a plan to run away together, but that never came to fruition because I got pregnant. When I got pregnant, I didn't know until I was 3 months gone, and by the time it was already too late to do anything. The worst part was that I wasn't the one who figured out I was pregnant. My mom did. I can still remember that day like it was yesterday, and how I badly wished that the ground could open up and just swallow me. Sadly, when my parents went to my boyfriend's parents to tell them that he had impregnated me, my boyfriend claimed that he had never even met me and that he was not responsible for the pregnancy. That day, it felt like the whole world had crashed on my shoulders, and words cannot explain how heartbroken and devastated I was. You know, since my parents were very, very, very religious, and they were against getting rid of the baby, I had no choice but to keep it, and the remaining 7 months up to the time I gave birth to my baby were horrible for me. It was literally the worst months of my life. I was forced to cook every day, do chores, and even do the laundry. I wasn't even allowed to complain about anything or say no. If I dared show discomfort, my mom would call me degrading names because my parents were ashamed of my pregnancy. They banned me from going to church or even leaving the house for a walk. They used every opportunity they had just to remind me that I was a disgrace to myself and everyone, especially since I was carrying a kid with no dad. And you all have no idea how that messed me up completely mentally. Already, because of how horrible my parents treated me while growing up, I was already struggling with low self-esteem, and getting pregnant out of the wedlock, it made the situation worse. I was literally depressed while pregnant, and I cried every night to bed. It really broke me that my parents and brother could turn their back on me like that, despite everything I did to please them and be a good daughter in the eyes of my parents. Thankfully, when I was 17 years of age, I gave birth to my daughter, Tessie, and that's when the real war started. A few days after I gave birth, my mom came to me and tells me that I need to get rid of it, but I didn't take her serious until I moved back home with Tessie. That day, I remember it, I was breastfeeding her, when my mom came to me and tells me that Tessie had to go. Well, guess what, guys? They wanted me to give Tessie up for adoption, but I told her that I would never do such a thing to my innocent child. When I told her no that day, I thought that she would let me and my child be, but I was wrong. The third time she brought it up, it was more of a threat and not advice. She tried to emotionally manipulate me by telling me how my future would be ruined if I did not give up Tessie for adoption, and how I was too young to be a mother. But I refused to listen to her. I insisted that I would not abandon Tessie, and when I said that, she went livid. She and my father called me a lot of awful names, and they said that they would not let me ruin their reputation in church and in the neighborhood, so they disowned me and kicked me out of their house with my newborn at age 17. To be more specific, Tessie was barely 2 weeks old when I got kicked out, and I had nowhere to go. For almost a year, I lived on the street doing all kinds of menial jobs, just to afford food and diapers for Tessie. Heck, there were days I could not even afford diapers. Tessie fell sick several times because of the excessive heat and cold depending on the season. It was just so horrible for us. Since I was an adopted child and had no real family, no one from my maternal or paternal family helped me. They all turned their back on me, and it was even through trying to get help from family members that I found out that my adopted mom had given birth to Jason. her biological son, when she was a teenager. Yet she constantly shamed me and made me feel like I was the worst sinner on earth when she found out that I was pregnant. I don't think I can ever forgive her for that. To even think that there was a time I went back to my parents' house to beg them to at least take Tessie and leave me? But my mother shut the door on me and threatened to call the police if I did not leave. I can never forget that day when she looked at her skinny, sick grandchild in my arms and shut the door in my face. Thankfully, as the years passed, I was able to start a drop shipping business, which turned out very successful, and that's how I was able to give Tessie and I the good life, one which we still have to this day. Now, the reason I'm sharing this 20-year-old story is because 3 days ago something very unexpected happened. While I was on Facebook chit-chatting with a potential client, I received a message from someone I did not know, and when I checked who it was, it turned out to be Jason. In his message, he said he was reaching out to me because he needs to see me urgently. Well, he even claimed that he was searching for me on Facebook and he was very glad that he found me. At first, I left his message unread, but yesterday I responded to it because I could not get him off my mind. The problem now is that Jason is asking to see me, but I turned him down. However, he keeps sending messages saying that he's sorry for everything and that he really needs to see me. He even asked about, well, my daughter. I know, I already told him no, but even though Jason and I were not the best siblings, a part of me wants to see him. And another part of me was mad at him for everything he did to me with his mom. So now my question is this. Am I the a-hole for refusing to see Jason even when I feel that he could be a changed person and wants to make things right? I look forward to your comments and suggestions. Thank you. Update number 1. Hey guys. Thank you so much for your comments. I sincerely appreciate your opinions, even though some of them were very painful to read. I apologize for making this update after 2 weeks. I really needed some time off social media. So there was a particular comment that stood out for me. It was the comment that said that I should even go back to my mom and apologize for disappointing her. I'm sorry, but I could never do that. Most of you are blaming me for getting pregnant as a teenager, but you all don't understand what I went through. I'm not in any way justifying my teenage pregnancy, but I have no regrets and I'm really glad it happened. If it didn't, I have no idea what would have become of me. Leaving my parents' house was one of the greatest things that ever happened, and I'm not even kidding. See, I didn't know that I was in a cage the whole time until I left, so no, I would never go back and apologize. I'm a mother now, and with the love I have for Tessie, if she had ever even gotten pregnant as a teenager, I know I would be mad, but I would never turn my back on her and my grandbaby. That I'm 100% sure of. So, that aside, the reason I'm making this update is because I changed my mind and I finally agreed to meet with Jason. I thought about everything, and if Jason is truly sorry and willing to make things up, then I am too. Also, it would be great for Tessie to have an uncle. Her whole life, she has not known any other family but me. And even though she's an adult now and does not ask questions like she used to when she was younger, I know that she secretly yearns for other family members. Deep down, I'm also excited to meet Jason's family. I know he must have gotten married and might probably have children, and I sincerely want to be a part of that. We've agreed to meet in 2 days, and I really hope the meeting turns out well. Hopefully meeting him is not going to stir up the emotions that I have managed to suppress all these years. One more thing. Someone mentioned that it's possible Jason was searching for me because he must have cut off his mother. Well, if he is cut off from her, that would be great. I'm saying so because I want nothing to do with her and I don't want my Tessie anywhere around her. I even forgot to tell you guys that while I was living on the street, my mom saw me and Tessie one evening. She had some grocery bags with her and she knew how badly I needed help. Even if it was just a can of beans. Do you know what she did? To spite me, my mother gave a $100 note to the lady who was sitting beside me that she walked away with a smirk. The lady was not a beggar per se. She was just a homeless like me, but she received the money with gratitude. To this day, I can never forget that smirk on her face. I can't. Well, that's it for now, guys. I promise to make an update immediately after my meeting with Jason. Thank you all for your comments and suggestions. I really appreciate them. Update number 2. Hello, community. Thank you all for your patience and concern. I know I've made a promise to update you all after my meeting with Jason. I apologize for being 2 days late. I should have made this update the same evening, but I wasn't in the right emotional and mental state. So guys, it breaks my heart to say that absolutely nothing went as planned. Not even the expectations I had for Jason. In my last update, I mentioned that I was excited to see Jason and possibly meet his family. But guess what, guys? There is no family. In fact, Jason is not even married. Now, if that were the only case, I would not be as mad as I am because Jason never even mentioned a family. I just made up everything inside of my head. I'm mad because Jason is no different from his mother. As I make this update, not only does he still live with his mom, but he has a serious drug problem. When I saw him, I could not even recognize him because of how terrible and uncoordinated he looked. Actually, the reason Jason reached out to me was not because he was sorry about how he treated me like he had claimed. Those were all lies from the pit of hell. The reason he looked for me and found me on Facebook was because he needed something. Apparently, my mom has been very sick for a while now and she desperately needs money for an expensive surgery. So they thought of reaching out to me and asking for help. Believe me, guys, when Jason told me the reason he actually reached out to me, I nearly exploded. I felt used again because he lied to me and manipulated me. The most annoying part is that Jason did not just ask for help politely. He made it sound like I owed it to him. He even said it to my face that if our mom had not adopted me and raised me with love, that I would not be who I am today. Because I could not take the nonsense he kept saying, I told him that his mother's sickness was none of my business and that he should never ever contact me again. Then I took my purse and tried to walk out on him, but he grabbed my hand and created a scene in the restaurant. My gosh! It was so embarrassing. He even yelled at me and called me names for refusing to help. That's why I say that he's no different from his mother. In fact, while talking to him that day, all I could see was his mom. In anger, I yelled back at him and reminded him that his parents had disowned me and that their problem was none of my business. Then I freed my hand and walked out of the restaurant. That day, I did have mixed feelings and I broke into tears when I got home. If I'm being honest, I felt used and stupid for even agreeing to meet with him in the first place. That means if they did not need my help, he would never have contacted me. How foolish of me to think that we could become one happy family. Anyways, that day I also got the news that cheered me up. Before Jason told me his purpose for meeting me, we had a little chit-chat about the family. So 3 years ago, after I got disowned and kicked out, my dad left my mom. According to Jason, he did not just leave. It turned out that my religious preacher father was having an affair, and when my mom caught him, he called it quits. Instead of working things out, he just left her and moved in with his mistress before officially ending things, thereby leaving my mom to suffer. Well, as much as that's bad news, it sincerely makes me happy she actually got what she deserved, and I wish more horrible things had happened to her. I took someone's advice. I've blocked Jason on Facebook and I hope he never contacts me again. I've had enough of their stupid family manipulation. Thank you everyone for your support. I don't know how I would have done this without you all. Thanks a lot. If anything comes up, I promise to make an update. But that's probably it. Update number 3. Hey guys. I read all your comments after my last update and they're truly heartwarming. Thank you all for being the true family I never had. Honestly, I didn't think that I would make an update so soon. It's only been a week since my last update. Just 2 days ago, something I did not expect happened. I was home with Tessie that afternoon when the doorbell rang. Since Tessie had been expecting some of her college friends, she went to get the door, but I was surprised when she came in to tell me that a man named Jason was asking to see me. Even though I've never told Jason where I lived, immediately after Tessie mentioned his name, I had a bad feeling that he was the one. When I got to the door, I saw Jason standing there with my mom. I was livid. I can't believe that merely seeing someone could make me that angry. As soon as I saw Jason and my mom, I told Tessie to get back inside the house and I asked them what they were doing here. Before I could even say the next sentence, my mother fell to her knees and begged me to help her. She claimed that she was dying, and I was the only one who could help her. After she was done with her drama and crocodile tears, I told her that even if I was walking on money, and I had no money tree growing in my room, I would rather burn than give it to her. Guess what, guys? As soon as I said that, Jason flipped and began to yell at me, and when he started yelling, I thought my mom would try to calm him down, but she didn't. Instead, she joined him. So, before Jason and my mom showed up at my front door, two strange members had been blowing up my phone, but since I had suspected it was Jason, I did not take the calls until I eventually blocked the numbers. So, while screaming at me that day, Jason admitted that he's been trying to call me, but I refused to take the calls and even block his number. It was, at that moment, everything made sense. Jason actually took my phone number from Facebook and surprisingly, he used some information to figure out where I lived. When his yelling got out of hand, I told them to get off my property or I'll call the police. By this time, some of my neighbors had come out to see why there was so much noise. After I threatened to call the cops on them, just like my mother had threatened me once, my mom makes a statement that broke me. She said that it was such a waste of time to adopt me and raise me, and she knew I would never do anything good for the family. Maybe she expected that emotional of manipulation with her words, it would work, but it didn't. Instead, I poured out my mind and I told her how I was glad she was no longer my mother. Then I told them to leave. By this time, Tessie was already talking to the police, and when my mother saw that we were not bluffing, they left in shame. How bold of them to show up at my house after 20 years and then try to manipulate me for help. Right now, I'm so sure neither Jason nor my mom is ever going to call or show up at my house again. They've learned it the hard way that I will never, ever help them. I know it's weird, but ever since I told my mom and Jason to leave and never show up again, I've slept better at night. I no longer carry so much resentment like I did. Well, thank you so much, my family. You're all the best. Your comments and support have been very helpful. Goodbye.